pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. FYI, Councilmember Walter is listening online. He is with us in spirit and on screen. Item number 2, citizens' comments. Opportunity for anybody to address the council for this about issue not on the agenda. Doesn't look like we have any. We'll move on to item number 3A, Youth Advisory Commission update. For Mr. Snyder, I believe we've got some guests to talk about what they're working on as well.
Yes, so today we have Youth Commission advisors. We have Olivia Schmidt, Faduma Mohammed, and Addison Johnson. There she is. And they put together a couple slides, kind of recap the year that they've had so far. Their term is coming to an end at the end of August, and then the applications will open then. So I'll let them take it away from here, and they can give their presentation.
All right, welcome, guys. Thanks for being here. Now you can sit up on.
Yeah, well, I'm Olivia.
I'm Faduma,
I'm Addison.
and we're part of the Lakeville Youth Commission.
What went well? Meeting new people and being surrounded by other young individuals who have the same aspirations as we do. We all had our own personal growth, expanding perspective, and clearing viewpoints and engaging in discussions within our community. The practice of a government, like meaning, collaboration, skill development, positive feedback, and clear objections, and also goals. As far as our opportunities to grow, I feel like we could use more communication in the group. Because I feel like sometimes there's a lack of communication. And then we can also focus on smaller community actions rather than big major projects. I feel like we could learn more about the policy and understand that, as well as gain a deeper understanding of how they're made, as well as implemented. And then, like Addison said, we have a lot of clear objectives and goals, but I feel like we don't really see as much of the impact and results. And then lastly, I feel like we should work on organization with our group and try to stay focused on our
So for future projects and hope, the rest of us have a year. For me, who has been here for 3 years so far, or for Olivia and Addison, who have 3 years remaining, I think. So we hope to work on projects such as helping little kids, or working with elementary age, and focusing on what Lakeville is and how we can become the youth we are as we all grow. Or donations or volunteer work, like we did at Cup Foods with bagging groceries. I was wondering if we have any opportunities for future projects we can work on, any tasks we could do with the commission or Lakeville Council in general. And as many of us unfortunately wrap up our 3rd to 4th year, we do hope to remain in the Lakeville community as we go into college or whatever future that holds. Whether jobs or volunteer, anything that we could stay within the community and continue helping out. And I think that's it. Any comments or feedback?
Yeah. Questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what was I take it this last year you had a major project?
Yeah, it was our major project was going to be either our original plan was going around to the local elementary schools or middle schools in Lakeville and kind of giving them a little talk or presentation about ways that they can get involved in the community. And then that didn't work out because of the school board and everything like that. So then we thought we would do a video. But then it's just the summer rounds, it was just hard to get everyone together. So.
A great idea.
Yeah, hopefully we can work on it this upcoming year.
Or do you have ideas for some of the smaller projects you mentioned?
No, I feel like we'll come up with more eventually, especially once the school year comes around, once everyone's together again. But
Volunteer work mostly, getting hands-on experience. instead of like being in like touring or staying in like the Murian room.
If you think about, the conversations that you guys have had over the last, several months, are there pieces of the puzzle that are missing from like the city perspective that we should be focusing on for youth, just in general? Not specifically maybe schools, but those are something that as a council, we should be thinking about.
I wouldn't say like anything's missing. I think it's been like a great job, but maybe like more involved within the council, like sitting in on meetings or like just seeing how that would go to like, get more like a professional experience. I would say we could try.
You do realize you're welcome to any meetings? Because they're all public. So any members of public, your parents, et cetera. So you're always welcome to attend any meeting.
How many kids are gonna either term out or,
Three.
graduate, How many, I guess, how many was,
Me and Faisal, I think. Yes. I thought it was one or two.
Well, there's one that's graduating.
Like this year,
Mhm.
it's me and
It can-
Faisal.
Like
Oh,
for
with-
up to,
yeah,
you're,
sorry,
you're
it
still
was-
eligible
yeah,
to return.
One.
One person is
Yeah.
is graduating from high school.
so are you guys? Think about that, because we do,
Yeah.
that's always been a challenge is, finding students who are interested in doing it. In particular, making sure we have people from all the different kind of schools represented. I think right now we have, Eastview might be the only school, or is Apple Valley, we don't have some, or do we?
We don't have Apple Valley. Or Eastview. Yeah, this is Farmington
Okay.
and North.
Do you have somebody from Rosemont, don't you? You're from Rosemont?
Yeah, her.
Okay.
That's all.
So, he said Apple Valley, but as long as the district covered too, that helps. Were we short one person last year, not being able to recruit, or did we fill all the spots that were available?
The bylaws say we could have up to 11. We had 9 this year. I would say, and they would agree, attendance was an issue. I think, I'd have to look at the attendance sheet, but I think of 8 of our 14 meetings, we had enough for a quorum throughout the year, which was frustrating. That's kind of why they kind of hit those roadblocks with that big project. And then once summer came along, what they intended to do was a recruiting video that we would put out as kind of a recruitment tool. But then with summer coming along, it was hard to get communication and coordination to get that done. So we had 2 open spots according to the bylaws, but I wasn't there for the recruiting process last year, so I'm not sure how that went.
Okay. Yeah, I probably want to come to either one of your first or second meetings. Also, would you just make sure to
Yeah.
send me one of them?
Yep.
So I can comment, hear what you guys have to say. That's okay.
Yeah.
Did the new superintendent or recurrent, the old superintendent, did he ever attend one of your meetings this last year?
Yeah.
Did you explain to him some of the obstacles that you've been running into if this year and the past years as far as communicating within the schools?
We did. I don't think he was very helpful.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We did, but I don't think he was very helpful with it. Like he just dismissed it. Like we asked for like questions or things you could like get help with, and he said there's nothing I can do.
Talk more about that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I attended a meeting in spring or so. But I thought it was it was a good conversation because, as a youth, a lot of your world is focused on your time in school. But this commission isn't necessarily a school focused commission. And so there is a kind of this tricky balance of how do we come up with something that's impactful, that's not necessarily school-based. And so I think some of your comments in one of your slides about the outcomes of leaving this position with a better understanding of city government, having some opportunities to be visible with some of the work that's going on as a city, getting some of your voice heard on some of the issues that might be impactful to you. We talked about that park on Cedar you know, and what elements are going in there and whatnot. So I think that's sort of the hard part is finding the niche of a youth commission that's not necessarily school district focused.
I do think there's a lot of value in having kids from different school districts
Oh, yeah.
communicate on a regular basis, because each community is so different, 194, 186, 182. Even though they all happen to live in the city, like, segregated.
Mayor Council, I think one of the important things is when we do this next round of recruitment and when we do you hold the interviews, I think you need to make clear in the interviews the time expectation.
Yeah.
You know, so, make clear that, or ask that they know, commit, you know, it's one night a month. Mostly, you know, sometimes you might have an extra meeting on that. I think that's important to get out there because I do know it was frustrating for those that did attend. Times they couldn't keep on.
Well, do we have a time set before we go into those interviews? So we can say, can you commit to this time?
We could do that in the bylaws. It says that it's a time set by the commission. And so we did that in our first meeting and they kept it the same as last year, which is 6:30 PM on Sunday, the third Sunday of each month. And then one thing, as we kind of struggled with numbers, is I tried to create a mid-month Zoom meeting just to kind of keep them engaged. And it was successful for the first couple. And then as summer came along, attendance dropped a little bit. So,
I don't even like going. So, well, I'm just grateful for the three of you for being here to give us the update, and I want to continue this conversation, and stay engaged with you. Especially on, you know, a pretty nice summer night, so thanks for that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Nice job, guys.
Thank you.
Any last questions?
No, I just appreciate their dedication at the time that they've been given, so, thank you.
So we will, I think once August turns around, we'll
Yep.
start working with the school districts on getting the public, notices out. We usually run those through at least the first week of school.
Okay.
And then we'll try to probably schedule interviews, most likely at the end of September, probably around your work session time frame.
Great. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item B, rail storage update. Nothing, thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, council members, Councilmember Walter. We have, some guests here today. I'm gonna ask them to introduce themselves, so you at least know who they are. I'm gonna start with a presentation briefly, and then I'm gonna pass it along to them, and they're gonna kind of give their presentation, and then I'll just kind of close it up. But maybe, Andrea, what you would start with you, just an introduction, please.
Hi, my name is Andrea Doppelman, and I'm the CEO of Progressive Rail.
Bruce Markburn, I'm president of Cooper Engineering Company.
Yeah, I'm Dan Schmidtale, Vice President of Compass Rail Services.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'll just briefly introduce the project, and then we'll follow up with that. So,
Won't be able to share it.
oh, is that what you use? All right, so we're here tonight here to talk about the freight rail project. We'll talk about a few things. I'll talk about the project background and purpose. I'll explain the funding sources to date. Then pass it on to the team here, and they'll give you an update, introduce themselves, and kind of share their participation in this project. And then I'll close it up with just a brief project status and then next steps. So we're here tonight to talk about the freight rail car storage. The issues that we have is basically west of Dodd Boulevard. Those existing tracks are used for storage. And with that comes some public safety concerns. We also have access limitations on some of our roadways. We also have driver delays when there's some transitions or switching, extending all the way past County Road 60. And that's due in large part to the lack of rail car storage within our city. And then we also want to look at an opportunity to sustain that market and then provide some long-term economic growth opportunities. I'm gonna scoot back here quick and then just gonna give you a picture. I don't want to show all the screen. Okay. With that, I'm gonna ask Dan, you to come up and I'll work on giving a presentation up here.
Okay. Well, I'm the new guy, so I got elected. Last in, first up. Really appreciate the opportunity to meet everybody, and thank you, Mayor and the council members, and especially the staff. They've been so supportive to our project from day one, and really wouldn't have gotten this far without their help. So I want to thank Justin and Zach and Tina, please. So.
Right.
There we go. You can go to that title slide. That's number 2, probably.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, so again, we're Compass Rail, and just thought I will give a little kind of overview of who we are, and so that we can introduce ourselves to Lakeview, and then talk a little bit about our part in the project and where we're at and next steps. So go ahead, Zach. So Compass Rail, we're a railcar services, railcar repair company. So what we do is the safety inspections of the rail cars when they're off the class 1 interchanges and on short lines like Progressive Rail. And so what we do is like a 28-point safety inspection, make sure the brakes are working, the wheels are the right thickness, and handholds aren't broken. So we do welding, we do rail car repair right where the rail car sits generally. We are growing fast. We're in 26 locations from Washington State down to Florida. And we are partnered with Progressive Rail, one of our best clients, and we operate at 8 of their railroads. You may not know, but Progressive owns railroads all across the country, headquartered right here in Lakeville.
So you only do the rail car, not the rails themselves?
Right. No, right now, that's right. Right now, we have our eye on that kind of service work going forward, but right now we're focused on the rail cars themselves. We also we have certain certifications which we are getting certified by the American Association of Railroads, AAR, to work on tank cars. There's some special training and things you have to do to work on the tank cars because of the potential for spills and things. So we are opening a shop to do valve work in a PGR warehouse in Bloomington. But, eventually we'd like to move that work up back to Lakeville, but that's kind of down the road. Go ahead, Seth. So our portion, I guess I won't review all the history. You folks know it better than me, but we came into the project last fall, and Andrea introduced us to the thought that if we've been working together with Andrea about 6 months maybe at the time, and she thought we were working together well. Would we be interested in investing and building our relationship together, and working with PGR to help solve a solution? So we immediately embraced the idea and started on a search for the property. So we acquired about 22 acres of land in the area, with the idea that it would be the site of the rail car storage facility for Lakeville. And, it would be a foothold for us to then build upon for future, potentially, down the road, an extra phase of a shop where we could have a covered space to work on rail cars. We could import customer cars to PGR because we're a nationwide company calling on car owners and other railroads that would ship their cars to us, or if they happen to be in the area, we could service them for them. So we could attract, maybe up to enough jobs in the future, maybe up to 100 people working on that, out of that location.
So you would be doing it for the nationwide clientele?
Right. So, for example, we're a Coke Industries Inc. Approved vendor. So we'll be working out at the Flint Hills refinery, and sometimes it might be such where we could have cars shipped to the PGR system, and we could do the repairs here and not on their property, because they kind of have space just like we have here, space concerns. They can't store too many cars that aren't working. They kind of have to keep them moving in and out of the refinery. That's one option, or potentially working cars for other railroads like Union Pacific Railroad or the CPKC that have repairs. We could, since the sites off the CPKC, we could potentially have cars that need service that we could pull into the, or adjacent to the storage area and work those later. But that would be down the road. This initial phase is just really for storage.
Right. I guess my thought process was, is if you're nationwide, you must already have these centers built.
Well,
or whatever.
No, ma'am, that's, that's kind of our goal is to get, right now, we're strictly doing what's called running repair agents. So we have these 26 centers, but they're really field services. We don't have fixed locations. We're working typically on the railroad sponsoring us, like PGR. We're working out of a Connex box and service trucks. So we really don't have a place to work inside, or our guys are outside every day. So again, we would love to use the site as a place to build upon, but this first phase, we're just focusing on the storage to kind of complete our mission with bringing this project together. Go ahead, Zach. So that Bruce has helped us, his firm has helped us kind of come up with some preliminary thoughts, and this is just kind of for conceptual. The site that we acquired is just south of the PGR offices on Highview. It's just under 22 acres. And, we feel like Bruce that we could fit approximately 225 rail cars there in that siding. And I think PGR believes it will help them immensely too with their operation of the railroad, being more efficient and being very close to their Lakeville shop. Bruce will have to design, or Zach and his team will design a new kind of a switch off of the CPKC railroad and then onto the property. So we'll hopefully, like I said, build it out and be successful, and we'll be building our other businesses that we'll be able to add to it as we grow together with PGR. So, thank you. Have any questions, or I guess Zach has more to present.
I'll finish up and perhaps Mayor, if you have any questions. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview. Dan did a great job of trying to explain where we're at, but here's County Road 70 on the top of your screen, running east and west. And then right in the middle of your screen is Highview Avenue. So you'll see just to the east of the yellow highlighted piece is the airport, and running kind of at a south, from like 11 o'clock to a 5 o'clock, there is the existing railroad. So the rail cars would be using that for service, and then the project that we're talking about would build a spur to the west, crossing Highview Avenue, and then kind of paralleling that northern property line of the yellow highlighted box. So that's the property that we're talking about specifically. The properties north and adjacent of that are owned by the Lakeville Airport Commission. So that gives us a little bit of perspective. As you may recall, we've kind of been looking in this general area for quite a few years to find a partner with land to try to accommodate the storage and build this facility. And really excited about working with Progressive Rail and Compass Rail here. And so just wanted to give you some perspective there as to what the property looks like. Just finish a couple of things here. I'm used to working with 3 screens. 1 screen is really hard. From a funding sources, I wanted to highlight a couple of things. The city has been successful in a couple of funding applications. We did acquire federal funding in the amount of $750,000. It was congressionally directed spending. Those dollars are primarily allocated to design. There may be some room to use it if we can't use that full allotment, but the goal will be to do all our environmental work, our preliminary design, our final design, things of that nature. We are also, that is a match, by the way, so you'll see on the bottom of your screen the local funding. That's the reason for the local funding is we have a 20% match. Then the state funding is from dollars that I think is 2023 legislature, and those will be used towards the construction of the rail tracks. Under that, we have an existing agreement with Housing and Urban Development for the federal grant, and we're very close to coming to the council with a agreement with the state to just finalize the terms of the $7 million there. Other than that, going to the next. Project status is we have to acquire the property. Compass Rail has identified that they have acquired that yellow piece that we saw on the screen. We're also working with the gas company that's between the railroad tracks and Highview Avenue to secure either an easement or the land and fee title. So working through that process. Once we have those good parcels, then the next step would bring that into the city of Lakeville. We propose to do that by annexation by ordinance. Following that, once the land then is in the city, then we would have authority to establish land use. And so there'd be an application to establish that. With that, obviously, we have public hearings for the city council and the planning commission. And then we also have agreements with Progressive Rail and then also Compass Rail as well for, they call it use agreements we would own the tracks. We would own the facility, we would construct them. But then we would have a use agreement with Progressive Rail to operate the trains on those tracks.
We don't own the rail, but not own.
We would also have to own the land or get an easement, so that's part of those agreements that we have to work through with Compass Rail. That's part of the process with the state. And the next steps we talked about is preliminary and final design, environmental documentation, securing the land and the easements. As you can imagine, there's quite a bit of ongoing coordination with Federal Rail Administration and MnDOT as well. And then, Mayor, like you alluded to, working with Compass Rail and Progressive Rail on land exchange agreements and then also sales agreements, use agreements. And that's what we have today. The timing is really good because over the next few months, you'll see this project brought before you in terms of kind of what we talked about as for those public hearings. So wanted to have a chance to introduce the partner on this project. And then we've talked about this quite a few times, but it's probably been a couple of years short of an annual CIP meeting. So if you have any questions, Director Goodroad is here as well. And I want to make sure Councilmember Walter can hear okay, but if there's any questions for us, happy to answer or the group.
Well, thank you to all people involved because it's clearly a very complex process. and will continue to be until this is complete. A new piece of this conversation that I guess I was not aware of is the expansion of services potentially to service kind of an in-house repair shop. And I think a number that's kind of elusive is how many cars are currently on the rail that goes into the center of Lakeville? And how many stalls are in this new facility and can accommodate both the cars that are stored in Lakeville in addition to service cars that could be expanded?
This first build out of whatever we can get will be dedicated to the storage first.
So, to answer your question, there's about 300 car tracks that go in already for downtown Lakeville. There's not many on there right now. It's under 20. So on the map, that is kind of small that Dan had in his presentation, it had the green tracks towards the top, and then like towards the bottom, there was like more purple colored tracks. So the green tracks would be the storage tracks, specifically dedicated or in exchange for what's downtown. That's what we would use, and that was 220. And so we would utilize those for storage as we have storage. If we don't have storage cars, we would use them for, operation, maybe holding cars that are coming into our Lakeville facility. Right now we interchange down in Northfield, so we can get them this far, this much closer. It's obviously much easier for business. If we can use them for some transloading, we'll do that, but they're for the storage.
Councilmember Lee, I try to pull up a little bit bigger image here, so hopefully that's easier to see.
Yep, so those green ones are what holds the 225 car slots. And then on the south side of that drawing, where the purple tracks are in the red building, that's the future kind of building / tracks for Compass Rail that they would be able to work on inside as they, work through rail cars and fix them, fix whatever needs repaired on them.
How frequently do you have 225 cars or more?
It's definitely, it's been a while. It's hit or miss. Usually when they come in typically like a unit train, which is about 100 to 110 cars at a time. So, it's very rare that we have just like spotty cars like this. And so it's honestly it's hit or miss. The last time was maybe 2021, where we had it filled up, I think, the whole way from 3 coal trains.
So how much closer are we? What's the timeline look like that we can get this accomplished?
Yeah, that's
2 years or?
It's a great question. I'm gonna try to attempt to do it, but Tina will correct me if I'm wrong. The next step is the annexation by ordinance. So that is a public process. We have to give 30 days to notice to folks. We are actually working on that currently, as we were notified when they closed on the property. So I would anticipate a September public hearing on that. Once that is completed and it's in the city of Lakeville, then we would also do the land use applications. That's scheduled for October of this year. And then we would work concurrently on agreements. So I would anticipate, if everything goes smoothly, would start design by the end of this year. Design, I'm guessing, might take 3 to 6 months. I have not done railroad tracks, so I'll look for some experts for that, but for sure there's environmental analyses and things like that. But I think the goal, if I could, would suggest to have the design done by the end of next year and then potentially going out for bid. If we could advance it, we will. We have the agreements in place for the most part, one with the federal government, and we're very close with the state. So we hope that you see a lot of progressive activity over each following month here. And we can certainly give, Mr. Miller can give you updates as we go along and come back once we have some designs and some concepts.
I'd say this is a project that I know I've been working on for the 10 years I've been here.
Right.
This is the closest we've been to a solution.
I know, I like
And-
being the light in the tunnel here.
So we're very, very optimistic and very grateful for the work we have with the partners over there. The next besides the annexation agreement that you'll see, will be an agreement that Zach alluded to, the use agreement, which talks about, it's going to spell out a lot of things. You know, we have to own the tract of the land. We're going to lease it back. There's going to be agreements between 3 parties. There's going to be some agreements on use of the existing rail. And we have drafted that agreement. We're working on comments. I know we owe you comments back on that. So, so that's going to be the next steps from the perspective. Just to be clear, I want the council to be clear, this will be owned by the city. It doesn't mean we're going to be responsible for maintaining it. We'll have agreements with our parties, but this technically will be a city asset.
What's the length after 25 years or something? We can
35.
35 we can sell everything.
And that's a federal requirement. But it's our intent that it will be an owner in name only. Expense, operating, everything will be done by Progressive and Compass.
Anything else from?
I want to move as quickly as possible as well. I was throwing it out there, and it sounds like construction is going to be the quickest. Once they start building, they can actually get all that track done. Probably.
Oh, seriously? Wow.
Yeah, construction, it sounds like it's going to be the fastest.
I mean, our hope is next year, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's very quick. So Zach, you should time it. So we hit it, you know, in the spring because the ground does freeze in Minnesota. We can't build track in the winter. So.
And the contract, the design contract is one that we have to own as well, but we will work, obviously, we're going to be designing it to their specifications. So it'll be a contract that we hold, but we'll be working with them on that. Likewise, the construction contract will be one that we hold. There'll be some reimbursement. I mean, there might be some cash flow. You know, we don't have 7 million laying around. We'll have to work on that, but.
You know, I just want to say, and to, you know, the folks and neighbors who have been talking about this for 10 years, one, for your patience, obviously, and also for Progressive sticking with us for all these years, and Andrew, for your trying to get creative right now. How many times you have conversations with my predecessor, and you and I trying to spitball and come up with a solution to make this thing work, and obviously the legislature stepping in and providing a lot of money really helped get us to where we are today, so I'm grateful for that, but, and the staff, I mean, this is, when I got elected 2 years ago, I was like, okay, in the next 4 years, we gotta get this dang thing done because it'd be really embarrassing if we don't make any progress. So good job to everybody on that side. Appreciate it. I don't want to use more rail puns, but yes, I do see there's a lot of it. Very good. Thank you guys for being here and staying in touch with us. Jeff, did you want to say something?
It's a good question. First of all, I want to echo, I thank everyone here because I know it's been a long process. So appreciate everyone putting the time in on this. And we're near the rail, so and we appreciate your help in trying to figure out a plan. The only question, I think Matt or Justin, you already kind of referred to it, but there's some contractual things you gotta still iron out. And just about once this gets built, then that'll keep the cars down there, then they won't be coming here anymore. That's kind of a trade-off. Yeah.
I mean, the tracks will still have to be used for operations.
Yeah.
Just very limited, like it is now. It's
Yeah.
very limited, but yeah.
And is there an
end date to that?
35 years.
Oh, that's
what the
35 years is when it becomes an asset. 35 years is when we own it and the requirements, prerequisites from the state funding go away. So we still own it, still city entity. It's just that any kind of restrictions that are tied to it from the state goes away. It's got to potentially go like that to just plain city asset.
The use agreement between Progressive Rail and the city of Lakeville is just gonna, there's gonna be no expiration date.
Gotcha. And then Dan, question for you. So
Yes, sir.
I like your idea about, you know, having that be a place for you guys to do some more work. Any idea, like if this goes off well with Progressive and then you're working on that, then any time frame on that? Would it be, your goal would it be like 3 to 5 years or?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we're already making a commitment to Minneapolis for, what we call our mobile repair crews that will work out of this warehouse. So hopefully while we're doing design and construction, we're getting more customers generated that are around the area, more car owners, and be able to attract more business to Progressives so we can fix more cars.
Hey, John, did you?
Yeah, so right now we have as we sit now, we have 12 people working. When we get our crew with our warehouse, our mobile recruit with the valve work. We're gonna have another 12, so there's 25 that could potentially all be reporting to Lakeville without, any more than we have now, you know, with this small shop. If we go to a big, small shop that's drawn there, there's kind of two scenarios. There's a small shop and a larger shop. The small shop has 40 people, kind of dedicated to it. The larger shop, which would also include a paint shop and a blast shop, so we would basically take tank cars and strip them down and recertify them. That would be 100 people.
You guys leave, will you leave your name and address for,
Oh, sure.
I had a quick question. When you mentioned tank cars, when you eventually working on that, would we have to have more like emergency fire services for?
I don't think these are any cars that would already in the area.
Yeah, they would be empties.
Oh, you said there might be some.
No, they're, when we work on them, they have to be.
They're empty.
Yeah. And we have to close, they have to be.
Would they come via rail then to your site?
Right, the PGR would deliver.
That's how they get there, okay. Makes sense.
Thank you, guys.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
All right, move on to item C, electric bike ordinance. Mr. Macy Archin is ready to give us the download. I got caught twice by scooters over the weekend.
And the hot topic lately.
By cop, I mean, they just didn't look when they were crossing the street.
Mayor and City Council, good evening. So obviously tonight is the hot topic of e-bikes and a new ordinance. As our ordinances currently sit, we have an ordinance allowing bicycles on city trails and pathways. We have restrictions regarding motorized vehicles on the trails and pathways, but nothing in regards to, I should say, the new phenomenon, but it's not e-bikes. And this is kind of in an effort to try to rectify kind of a gap within our ordinances, but also an opportunity for us to be able to put some new restrictions and rules in place working with the police department to try to address some of the concerns that we've received over the past few years regarding speeds and other unsafe aspects. Chief Olson, is there anything I missed there?
No, I don't think with that piece, I'm sure there'll be some questions and I can address those on a lot of things outside of, you know, the e-bikes as defined by statute, which are problematic. Scooters, motorized bikes, things like that. I can answer questions on those.
Does that cover golf carts? I've started getting called about golf carts too, so.
It's separate yet.
Okay.
By ordinance, we can approve permits for people to operate golf carts on bike paths. With a medical diagnosis, there's a whole process to go through. I think we have 2 in the city that are authorized to do that. And it has to be a specific route as well. Just can't be random driving around town. It has to be getting from the residents to retail area for groceries or whatever that is. I think we only have 2.
Yeah, I would say we do receive calls regarding motorized dirt bikes and those types of items, and we've seen some videos that residents have sent in as well. Those are already permitted, or I'm sorry, restricted. Prohibited is what I tried to say. So I think along with this, there's going to need to be an additional component of education. I think there's aspects there regarding our trail signage, regarding some education pieces regarding this, but as well as other existing ordinances that we're going to need to work on to try to make sure people understand better what is and is not allowed on our trails.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great if whatever changes we go through or don't go through, the Q1 newsletter next year is a key component.
So do e-bikes have horns?
They're not required in the same way that a bike isn't required to have valve in that aspect. So, and the 3 different classifications, some don't have pedals. So the third is really just a throttle control. So they are in a lot of respects different.
I know this sounds really kind of crazy, but it seemed to be more of a, it must have been learned behavior through education, but when when we were on trails in, Canada, they always used their horns. So you always knew somebody was coming up behind you. So I don't know if that's something we require and then educate people to use them. Because I think nothing stops your heart more than having somebody come up behind you and you had no clue. And then they're zipping into the grass or whatever else. And I don't know what the rules are on if they're allowed to even use the grass.
No, that's in our existing ordinance as well, and it is included in here as well.
Yeah.
That they're not allowed to essentially go off trail to create their own passing zones. The other component that I think is going to be important for us to do some more education on is speed. As it stands right now, there are speed limits to our trails, and there are segments of our trails that we are looking to decrease even further. Juneau Trail is a great example of that with the Lake Marion Greenway Trail. There's design work that's being done there now to try to implement changes so we can slow speeds. But some of these e-bikes, as they are now, go 28 miles per hour.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, so the ordinance as it stands now would restrict speeds on our trails across the board to 15, and that's for all trail users. So that's e-bikes as well as bicycles. But I would say it is one of the things, I mean, I ride bike as well, and it's one of those things, if you're riding in Minneapolis or other areas where there are very busy trails, people are generally good about, doing it on your left, passing in a sense. And that doesn't always carry through, I would say. So I think there are points where maybe you're accustomed to riding on a trail that is empty, and you now hit an area where it's busy, and I think sometimes people forget. So that's again where I go back to education.
And where's the 15 where other cities are?
Yeah, so we did, so 15 we were pulling from Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, but it is consistent with where a lot of other communities are at. And this has been, like I said, a hot topic for a lot of the other cities. A lot of park and rec departments are also doing the same process. So.
And would this have an impact on scooters, or is that a completely another separate conversation?
So we had this conversation.
But it's different. So motorized foot scooters are clearly defined in statute. You have to be at least, these are the stand-up type, no seat. Have to be at least 12 to operate. If you're between 12 and I think it's 17, you have to have a helmet on. We see them all over town. And they abide by the same, assuming you're at least 12 and have the safety equipment, it's treated like a bicycle. So side of the roadway, no sidewalks. Technically, by ordinance, they're not allowed on the bike path because it's a vehicle, it's a motorized vehicle. Now, you think of like Dodd Boulevard, by statute, they could be going down the shoulder of Dodd Boulevard, but not on the bike path. Maybe that's where some discretion would come in. If would we rather have a 14-year-old on the bike path? So from an enforcement standpoint, there's some of those things for us to sort out, but they are totally different than e-bikes. By statute, their own set of rules.
Is there any, in the department, any kind of like proactive encouragement for good behavior, reminders on, especially with not wearing a helmet on the certain ages, for instance? And
We've done it just with helmets in general over the years with the promo of Jerry Quinn. We've done those. There's room to grow on that for sure. I think one of the challenges has just been the number of new types of devices out there. Kind of been this gradual transgression from e-bikes into everything else with an electric motor that travels really, really fast. I think there's lack of awareness and education of parents of what their kids are riding and able to legally ride, but we've had some tragic encounters with scooters in town, and they are dangerous to go fast. Voters aren't looking for them all the time.
that's exactly true. And what I've also heard from feedback is, it seems like because of the increase in e-bike use, small dirt bikes, mini bikes that are gas powered are on the trails now too, because they say, well, just because it's gas versus E. So I'm seeing an increase on that at the same time.
And we've received videos from residents all over the city with exactly this. So I think that's where education, needs to be where we try to, because those are already restricted, they are prohibited. And I don't know that parents are aware of that at this point.
Yeah.
If people do see those, we encourage them to call 911.
Yeah.
Do we know if there's any, like, educational, is there a company that has an e-bike class for, because I'm just thinking, I mean, driver training, that's a long process with a lot of oversight. Yeah, here's a bike that has a throttle that'll go 28 miles an hour, downhill probably a little faster. And I've seen, on the trails, it's one thing, just the speed, but I've seen them on streets too. People, a kid driving down the street, like in the middle of the street, if there's any kind of resources for education and training on how to ride these, what their capabilities are, how to avoid getting killed?
Yeah, so I can share our recreation staff, recreation manager actually met with our new bike shop, the one just down the road here, and did have a conversation regarding bike repair, bike use, e-bikes, standard bikes. So I think there are some things there that we are looking at through the rec department that I think would be great, especially if you're just turning of age to get one of these. So yeah, we are working on some things there.
That'd be awesome to have some kind of education.
So e-bikes aren't licensed.
Will there be any discrepancies with the age requirement for adjacent cities?
That's actually not, that's managed by the state, so that's state statute.
I see. Got it. Because I see a lot of folks that are under 15 on this, so. So it's already, yes. It's,
Oh, that's an education for parents going to not buy that till their 15th birthday or whatever. Oh. They're always looking for something to buy their kids, so hopefully they don't do it too soon.
do you think signage on the trails with speed limits are really good? And most people are just guessing. They're going to use their best judgment, but there's nothing posted right now for speed. I'm not sure if e-bikes have an odometer on them. Yeah. So.
There are some enforcement challenges with speed here. I mean, it's not like running radar on the squad, right? But if it's set at 15, if you're doing 28, that visibly, we can make that. I mean, the way the ordinance we're looking to write it, there's safe and reasonable speeds too. So if you're weaving in and out of people, we can use that kind of thing. I'm not going to force our way out of all of this, but it has to be a component so we have some teeth. A lot of it is education, especially just the awareness of the appearance of what's legal and what's not up there. There's just a lot of confusion.
So the speed trailer can't pick up my top five.
Sometimes it's a challenge to people.
That's true, yeah.
Do we have community service officers that'll be riding their own e-bikes to be able to start having a presence for people to realize somebody monitoring them, to start to change habits? I don't know if it's even, maybe it's a temporary year-long solution or something, but because we can put up all the signs in the world and it's not gonna matter if they figure who's gonna say anything.
We don't have e-bikes right now. We're looking at that as a reform 26. But we do have ways to get out of the trails a little bit. So we know some of our frequently used areas or where speed could be an issue. I think there's room for us to include increased enforcement as we can out there. Education and being presence.
Are there signs that are simple for bike etiquette be put on the trails?
Yeah, so and this is where the timing of this I think is good because these are the questions that we've been posing to our consultant on the Green Bike Trail. Because it's the first trail where we're really trying to pay attention to speed. So there are some design features that help to naturally slow down speed, but signage is another component of that. And sometimes painted speed limits on the trail, multi-directional, as opposed to posted signs are more effective. So those are all components we're looking at. I will say, we're sitting at almost 150 miles of trails in Lakeville. It's 120 miles of paved trails. It's going to be a daunting task in some respects to sign everything. So there is going to just need to be a component of education as well. So I think there are hot spots, areas we know that are an issue. We pointed antlers as well.
Sure.
So I think the goal is going to be to hit some of those the areas where it's more commonly an issue.
Trailhead sign.
Yep, trailhead signage. Yep. And we've made sure as well that what's been written here also works with the Dakota County Greenways as well. The goal being we can implement the same, obviously, ordinance in both scenarios. We didn't want something that was competing with Dakota County, now that we're working for them to build those trails.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about it because as I said, this is something I get calls and for sure. And I think, in particular, I think it's mostly people who are concerned for the safety of kids who probably should be paying a little bit more attention to their surroundings.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Our next item is short-term rental discussion. Good road. Can I do a presentation on both?
So the council, put a brief memo together and just a comparison chart. I did not, prepare to pull that up, but hopefully you guys can see it on your devices. But my understanding is just wanted to have a little bit of an overview of where we're at with short-term rentals and have some discussion about any changes that we might want to make to the ordinance. So just to get us all on the same page, City of Lakeville does allow short-term rentals or Airbnbs, if you understand it better that way, with approval of an administrative permit. And then there's some specific requirements in the ordinance. When I checked our files, we have a couple that actually have administrative permits. So I'm assuming that this is happening without our knowledge. It's very difficult to track. But the ordinance defines in every residential district by administrative permit that the renting of rooms within an owner-occupied dwelling, not to more than 2 individuals who are each unrelated to the principal family, as an accessory use, provided that the property owner shall not enter into a rental agreement with more than 2 individuals within a 30-day period, and there shall be at least 1 off-street parking stall provided for each rental occupant of the property, in addition to the parking stalls that are already required for that residence. So again, this language is listed in the zoning code for all of our residential districts. So if you can picture the zoning code, you've got your permitted uses, conditional uses, interim uses, and administrative uses. So this is listed in each of those districts. So it's not a separate ordinance unto itself. Based on this language, it has been interpreted that only rooms can be rented, so a bedroom, not the whole home, and that the owner must reside in the home at the same time as the renter. And that has been interpreted based on the requirement that it's an owner-occupied dwelling. Now, what an owner-occupied dwelling basically means is it's a homestead. Somebody is renting the home that they're currently living in. So I think that interpretation could be read both ways, meaning the renting of the room is occurring in a home that somebody owns and lives in. I don't know if it necessarily says that owner has to also be in the home at the time of the rental, but that is how it has historically been interpreted. We did provide a table, 8 different communities around our area that have either require a license or a CUP or registration form of some kind, along with a fee, and then what their ordinances kind of spell out in the manner of the number of guests that are allowed, how they handle parking, the amount of the home, whether it's the entire house that could be rented or just one room, and then any other additional information, just to give you a background. And then we have copies of all of these ordinances as well. So a couple other things that I thought might help get the conversation started. Some of the recommendations that we as staff have is to create an actual definition of a short-term rental. We don't even list that as one of our uses in our definition section. So that's something that needs to be done. We should consider, I think, creating a separate ordinance section for short-term rentals rather than just burying it in each residential district. It's just easier for our residents to find. Review the residential zoning districts that we want to allow short-term rentals. I mean, it's even allowed in medium and high density. And it just seems odd. But I guess, if you want to use your apartment as an Airbnb, in very urban areas, that happens. But we should at least have that conversation. Clarify if renting of the whole house is supported by you, or if you want to keep it to just a room. And then other considerations, make sure we're handling off-street parking appropriately. Do we want to require a license or registration? That's going to take some education. And then do we want to put a limit on the number of short-term rentals that we even allow in the community? A couple of cities are doing that. Again, a hard thing to track.
I just asked for clarification. If you were to rent your house, and you're saying that you need to have 2 on the street, and we have November to March, no off-street parking. I'm trying to figure out where is the off-street, let's just say a residential house.
So we have to have a wider driveway or some kind of parking pad off of their driveway to accommodate it. So that we're not having, any customer who is an Airbnb visitor parking on the street over. So not all homes, yards, and driveways would be able to accommodate us.
The garage style counts.
The garage style house.
Yes. Okay. And then the one thing with all of this that we didn't do when we created a rental registration ordinance is to clarify in that ordinance that is in effect whenever you have a rental 30 days or more. That should be fixed regardless, because then what the short-term rental is that day 1 to day 29. So once you get to 30, that's when you're into, a longer term rental, and you should be then complying with the rental registration. That is a fix we should do regardless.
So what was the issue with the one that came up? Weren't they just long-term anyway?
I think it ultimately, that one last summer, I think it ultimately turned into that because they were doing repeated one after another that I think it turned into, and I think they do now have a rental registration.
Okay. I mean, I think a couple of things to think about from my perspective. One is, I don't necessarily opinion about if it's one room or the whole house. Okay, well, I should say. I think the parking component is really important. This year, more than others, it seems like more complaints are coming about street parking in the summer. And so, I don't want to say, but maybe we need to have a conversation about overnight parking year round, which could be controversial, but I'm just saying that it continues to be an issue. And I think if we have increased rentals, it'll definitely become an issue. So having that parking component is important. And certainly at a minimum, they have the same requirements for rental registration that we have for long term. And, I'd like to maybe have a little bit more teeth to that. And then finally, we just got to think, and I don't know what the right answer is. I don't foresee us becoming a community that has a lot of this where we're becoming a vacation spot. Maybe, I don't know, as people on the lakes age out or something. But I get concerned about these communities that are running into affordability for home ownership because they have so many short-term rentals. Certainly neighborhoods in South Minneapolis are experiencing that. So I don't know if that's on our horizon, but I just want to to talk about that, because I don't want to get down the road where we're having an expectation.
It's interesting that you mentioned it, because I couldn't quite articulate the thought in my mind, but I started thinking, it's like, well, okay, if I'm done with my house, kids are out, and, you know, I'm gonna be away to someplace else, but I'm gonna maintain ownership of this house and rent it to people as a VRBO. What does that do to our housing market? What does that do to the availability of a potential house for somebody else? So I just thought it was interesting to mention, because I was thinking of the same thing. I think the parking is incredibly important tonight. When I think of short-term rental, the long-term rental, we have the rental registration, it's 30+ days. When I think of short-term rental, I'm not thinking of 129 days. I'm thinking of a week during the summer, you know, when we're coming with our kids to hang out with our family. So I think of more, a few days to to a couple weeks is probably what we're dealing most with the short-term rental. And, there's just different flavors of people that do that. My siblings, just a few of them met up and did a VRBO, taking a trip, and quiet as church mice. And then you get, if you have somebody else that just is looking for a place to party for a week, that's a whole different thing. And so for me, I'm not opposed to people being able to take a place out and be responsible landlords, whether they're present or not, as opposed to putting a burden on our neighbors and our police department for the places that, hey, I just want to go find a place to party for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think finding the right balance between protecting property rights if somebody wants something to rent it out, but then protecting their neighbor's property rights as well.
Yeah.
And so the registration to me would have to have teeth to say if you continue violations or something, we're going to revoke your license.
I'm wondering if the other part of the soup and the balls would be that we would actually collect a tax on it. Because that keeps them more accountable, and it also tells us who's registered or not. So whatever.
Does VRBO or Airbnb pay the CVB tax like a hotel motel?
They say sales tax, I would assume, and that would state. I don't think that.
I'd be curious to find that out if some communities do where they make it on par with.
There's a lodging tax in here, and so Roseville has one.
Well, we have the lodging tax, but whether or not it applies to.
Right, it exists. I'm just wondering if it applies to this.
I can find out.
Because I don't know how you're gonna keep them accountable on the 30 days, the multiple times otherwise. But if they're having a reporting system, so anyway, do say I'm trying to say, I'm just trying to figure it out in an accountability system. And if it's taxed, it might also be something that somebody might move away from too, decide not to do it, so it would be a deterrent. Or a fee, or however you want to call that tax, but it's really a tax. Right.
Well, and also it makes things more fair for lodging business owners in town because they're.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So process-wise, is you take our feedback, come up with ours, and then we have a kind of a public conversation about that.
Probably come back and have a work session again for you all to review the draft, and then we'll take it from there, depending on your guidance and recommendations for community feedback. Again, unless somebody is on those sites regularly and searching in Lakeville to know, oftentimes it'll show up where the home shows up. And I'm not an Airbnb person, so I'm probably the last one to give advice on this. I was talking to our planning manager, Chris Jensen. Her understanding is it'll show an area where the home is located, not necessarily the exact address until the render. So it's really hard for staff to do any kind of tracking to know how many there are. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think having some teeth on the points, just like we do in any type of situation and, you know, code violation and so forth.
But I talked to Airbnb at the meeting, so the city's conference, and I'm just getting signed up on their city portal. And they can give us all the stats for everything related to our city. You can even put in, responsible hosting requirements for every single booking for everything that happened within our city borders. So I think that's something to explore a little bit more. I don't know a ton about this, but the rep said, you know, they're interested in making sure that people want to rent houses. And so, you know, everything from how the house is maintained to the guests and making sure there's, you know, partying going on. So I don't know if VRBO has something similar, but I think being on the city portal for Airbnb.
Let's connect when we figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, I did look at our lodging tax code and it says it's collected on the lodging at a hotel, motel, rooming house. Yes, you would consider this tourist court or resort. So, I mean, we might need to modify the ordinance if we want to make sure it's better out.
Is
And
there,
then we just notify them when they do the registration, they can collect it through.
One other thing that I was thinking too, in education tonight. But is, if there's a packet or something, if somebody's gonna do this, if they're gonna come in and apply and want to do it, information packet about, you know, responsible posting, our ordinances, our expectations, and then somehow have them sign off on that.
it's like we do the rental registration.
Yeah, just so you understand, you know, what you're getting into, because I could see just a homeowner going, oh gosh, why not just do this? And, you know, gotta understand what you're doing.
So without, people don't always look at our communications, et cetera. Is there like a process? The only way we're gonna know is if somebody complains about whoever is renting it, right? So is there something that we can put in there for the first time warning? Meaning, you know, you need to be registered, da, 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 da. And I don't know if we need to put it someplace or if that's just a police procedural thing or whatever.
Well, I wonder if the Airbnb or VRBO has that as part of their like city engagement, like when you sign up on their platform.
Is there-
I don't know, that's where to figure that out.
No, but is there any other way to rent out your house besides using the
Facebook.
organizations?
Yeah. Craigslist. Oh. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going on Craigslist to Facebook to rent out. I don't know, something.
But I think your suggestion of, you know, if we get a complaint on one and we figure out, you know, this is being operated as a Airbnb or a VRBO, they may not realize we have this new ordinance, so then we would send them all of that information and work with them to get them registered. You certainly are first text.
Is there, you guys are tech savvy, I'm not. Is there a way to have, since our communications department's on Facebook or whatever, is there any way to, have alerts come in if it shows up on Facebook, like I don't know what if it would be at like a Facebook marketplace, or is there a way to get alerts? Like you could, you know, back in the day, you know, was to get Google alert if there was some news piece or whatever.
You know, I think you have to probably go search for it.
You do have to go search for it. Okay.
Can I ask, is there any other opinion, the mayor said didn't have a big opinion, strong opinion, whether it's a bedroom versus the whole home? Are there other thoughts there? to me, it seems like it's more common now for the whole home.
Yeah.
And it's kind of awkward just renting a bedroom from somebody. Okay.
Yeah, no, I would have said.
There are places that do. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to be at a wedding Labor Day weekend in Cannon Falls, there's one hotel. But I went on Airbnb and there's some apartment, like rooms. They're there.
I'm not trying to preclude that. I think that can be part of it,
But
but
the whole home, you're comfortable with that.
But I would guess
Okay.
there are a lot of the apartment buildings in this town that their leases don't allow that. I'd be really surprised.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't, was somebody renting their apartment for a week or whatever?
No, I don't think we either. I'm just saying, I just don't know how prevalent it is.
I'm sure that's in a lot of homeowner association guidelines too.
Could be.
Like,
Yeah, so I guess that's part of our education, saying this is the city rules, but you have to check with the HOA.
it's outside our.
You know, the wording that's being used about who can rent up to two people with not the same name, it's just confusing as heck to me.
It is. It is.
So I don't know if there's any way to make that cleaner as far as a directive of how many people can rent.
That is my intent. I don't know how old this ordinance is when this language was introduced, but I agree with you, it is confusing. And you ask myself or Chris or Heather in our department, and we might all interpret it a little bit different. So I think that's where developing a whole separate ordinance, like we did the rental registration, pulling it out of each individual district, making sure we're all comfortable with what districts this is added, have a clear definition and clear terminology, can fix a lot of confusion for property owners.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did this in like 2012, 13, 14. Quite a while.
And there were some, like looking in the matrix that just said that, I saw at least one that said, hey, one per bedroom plus one, and kids don't count. I think that's a lot cleaner than trying to figure out, well, two people, but you can't have the same name.
Sometimes college towns do that.
Yeah.
Because they don't want
They don't want
6 college people want house today.
something, just because I use this site for work, but Peerspace is about hosting events that aren't necessarily something that you stay overnight, but you're using anything from a residential space to a business to host something. So might be something worth looking at too, with renting spaces in general.
Okay, do you feel like you have good direction? Great. All right. We want to plow through, is that okay if we just go right into the last item here?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a brief overview of our 2024 financial components that I saw. We will, like I mentioned at the last meeting, we filed for the extension with the state auditor's office and with the GFOA for our excellence award. So, and I learned at our finance committee meeting that there are a lot more extension requests this year for those GFOA awards. I don't know if everybody's going through ERP implementations and their staffing changes with lots of other audits. It's not just our staffing changes.
So it makes sense.
Auditors have staffing changes too. So, but there's a lot of people that this year.
They're not a Lotus customer anymore.
Yeah. Some of those. So, just wanted to give you this high level, like I mentioned, mainly looking at the general fund compared to budget, our revenues are roughly 1.1 million over amended budget. So that's good. 250,000 of that was in just our interest income. And then roughly 800,000 in licensing permits and charges for services, which are all development related. Looking at the expenditures of general fund, it appears public safety is over budget by 175,000, but they have revenues up in above roughly 170,000 to the good. So it was pretty much almost a wash. But we did have some unique instances happening in 2024. Overtime was over budget and police by 75,000. A large chunk of that was for the Burkesville incident. So there's just some things out of our control. Building and equipment maintenance for police as well. Those were about 50,000 over budget. So just some things we didn't anticipate. But looking at it overall, so our net change in the fund balance of roughly 900,000 to the good, which translates to 2.4 million better than what we had budgeted. With the savings that we had in expenditures and the revenues above, how I mentioned. So we are looking at our fund balance at the end of the year. When we take out the restricted fund balance of 1.5, we're at 49% of next year, 2025 expenditures. That 1.85 is what we held on to from that public safety aid money. Remember we got in 2023. We did put part of it into the equipment fund, and then we restricted this other amount. So, and if you'll recall, staff also recommended that we transfer this 1.85 in 2025 for the land purchase of Fire Station 5. So that was built into the funding sources for that. But it is restricted as of the end of 2024. So that's the general fund in a nutshell. And there's nothing really to speak of with the fund balance or the balance sheet, sorry. The net change in the fund balance, prior year adjustment is 64,000. There were some small, and you'll see it more when I talk about enterprise funds. We had to restate some capital asset groupings. So that's what that prior period change is, the 64,000.
I'm sorry, did you say this? I wasn't paying attention. The 300,000 in property tax, was that delinquent or that's just lower than what we budgeted?
That's just a lower than budgeted, so uncollected, because what we've got outstanding in this year's property taxes plus delinquency is more than that.
Okay.
So, yeah, nothing really extraordinary on the balance sheet for the general fund. So we go to the enterprise funds, statement of revenues and expenditures. Changes in that position. I'll talk to the utility funds first. 2024 revenues, about 1.5 million less than 2023. Even though we had that dry spell in 2024 in October, remember 2023, it was dry for a lot of the summer. But if you come down to the intergovernmental grants, we also in 2024 we had roughly almost $1 million less than grants than we did in 2023. But changing that positioning all the way to the bottom, 2024 is roughly 1.3 million less than 2023's change in fund balance. In seasonal things, the water, wetness of the summers and springs feeds into that in a big way. The large change in capital asset, the prior period adjustment, that 4.3 million at the bottom, that is we had to group our capital asset purposes of meter inventories and how we treated the meters. So that was the new GASB bill, and that affected us more in those particular funds. So just a note with the liquor fund, net profit really quite in line with 2023. I mean, it's 6.2 million. And then going down all the way to the bottom, the income and loss before transfers are right in line with 2023. The transfers out, we transferred out 1.4 million roughly. The big ones that if you notice in 2023, and I'll just remind you is what these were, that 2.3 million transferred in, that was the tip 10. That was decertified. that money we put into the liquor fund, and then we transferred out 1.2 million of it to the art center building purchase. So there's some, and then we had a large transfer out to, the equipment fund in 2023. So there's just some, those pieces make it look a little odd there, but it was a one-time thing. So, all the funds are in good shape. They're strong. The debt service funds are totally at what we are required by state statute to have in them. Capital project funds are moving as they should. The auditors did not have any findings against us, and like I said, we're still having them review if they staffing shortages, then always extensions. So it's been a pile up for them trying to get all these financial statements reviewed and finalized. But really hoping to bring it to council for final approval at their second meeting in August. So the other is telling us. So is anyone having questions?
Barry, do you have any?
No, we talked with Julie a little bit about this after the finance committee last week, and we think that Lakeville's doing a very good job on keeping in compliance with the policies that we have for debt management as well as operations of we've talked with Julie, we'll do a little bit more work looking at the fund balances for the enterprise funds going forward, but we don't see any big changes. I mean, they're just to make sure we maintain financial strength so to keep the credit rating where it's at.
Any questions or comments? Okay, thanks for I think we have any items for future discussion.
So, I don't know if we want to do this or not, but, a couple complaints on delivery drivers making U-turns and, yeah, and, backing into, driveways, et cetera, that weren't necessarily the driveway that they delivered to. So I don't know if that's something we want to talk about in the future, if it's something that we can either look at certain areas of the city where it would be problematic, or if it would be a citywide thing, and education to the delivery companies, their employees, not to behave in such
Are you
a.
talking about package delivery or more like DoorDash delivery?
No, I'm talking about packages. The complaints I've received were from the bigger delivery companies. Although,
Are they doing it consistently at the same address?
yes. That's why I was wondering, instead of making it a citywide thing, if we could be looking at certain neighborhoods that maybe are set up in such a way that is causing them to take these shortcuts. Because, it's really, I'm just worried about kids in the neighborhood. But, I don't know if you want to talk about it in the future or not.
You want to send it, if you know the area, from the same schedule, it could be a mapping thing that we might be able to fix too.
Okay.
Complaints in the area.
Okay.
Items? Any community or city administrator updates?
Somebody else go ahead now.
We had the Air Lake Airport Advisory Commission meeting. It's a quarterly meeting. We just talked about upcoming events. We did talk about the Goldman out there. Progress in that. And other than that, it wasn't a lot.
We did have a personnel committee meeting today, this afternoon. And basically it was just going over some ordinances. The first one was adding cannabis to the alcohol. There, I don't think, see, I think it pulled up there. So I get the right things. These are all employee type policies, I'm sorry. So making sure that, employees that let's say drive, like building inspectors, supervisors, or whatever the proper title is, are included in testing. The other thing was making sure that employees, when they're be hired, knew that they would be being tested. And then suppose we can't hear you, Dan, huh? No. I was trying to remember the others. But one of them has to do with parenting leave and matching state level. What else am I missing, Justin? I know I'm missing one more.
They were all basically get in the inherent state statute, so parental leave, drug testing policy. One is about our highway, just a kind of a change in how we handle applicant list.
Our drivers, are they, like other truck drivers who set the federal, they're under federal.
They're ours are CDL, so they're still required to follow federal guidelines.
Sorry about that, sorry to be so scrambled. It was only a couple hours ago, but I still.
It's one note about public safety, we just had for this, related to the parking. Comment, it's recommended that we bring to the work session that, consideration for enhanced parking. We'll have that conversation soon. And then from the fire relief, the successful planning product, walk to breakfast, about 2,030 something plates were sold. And then the started, not everyone gets 2 or more, but so we're guessing somewhere around 3,000 walkers, but we, pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, I love the 11, the line around the building. That was the main topic of conversation. How do we get that to 30 minutes or less?
Hours.
Well, I mean, most of it, the solution is in the future for the green fire station. To be able to add more walk lanes. Put that in the design. Just you're not far off. Not for the room, but for the power, because there's a power consideration for it. We can't add more irons to the current station, but we would need more power in the new station to have more.
It was noted at the project meeting this morning.
Okay. Can't you bring like generator? You could actually use a fire truck if you really wanted to. But
It won't be done on the new station, but when we renovate Station 1, we will expand.